Let's examine Mark chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. This is verse 1 from the English Standard Bible. The beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. So, the first thing that Mark tells his readers is that this document is good news. The word gospel is an English translation of a Greek word that means good news or a good message. So, this is the beginning of a good message. About what? About whom? Mark tells his readers, including us, that this is the good news about a person named Jesus. But he doesn't just call him Jesus, he calls him Jesus Christ. Christ is not a name, it's a title. The word Christ is a Greek word, which means anointed, and is generally applied to the Hebrew concept of the Messiah. So, Mark tells us that the Jesus about whom he has good news is the anointed Messiah promised by God to the Jews. By calling him Jesus Christ, Mark is making a claim of great significance to anyone in his audience awaiting the Messiah. But wait, there's more. He not only says that Jesus is the long-awaited Messiah, but he then also states that Jesus is the Son of God. Mark has created a frame for our understanding of his purpose as a writer. He tells us, here begins a message of good news. This good news is about a person named Jesus. Not Jesus Jones, not Jesus Bar Joseph, but Jesus Christ, the anointed Messiah promised to his people by God through his prophets, and this Jesus is also the Son of God. Next, Mark employs an interesting strategy. He starts laying out a case for the credibility of his claims about Jesus. Let's read verses 2 and 3. As it is written in Isaiah the prophet, "Behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. Prepare the way of the Lord. Make his paths straight." After announcing the gospel, Mark's next step is to quote Isaiah the prophet. What does that tell us about Mark's intended audience and Mark's strategy for persuading them? Well, he must believe that Isaiah carries some authority with his audience. How can we know this? Because before he offers any further information about Jesus, he engages in an appeal to Isaiah, the prophet's authority, not his own. Mark made two huge claims about Jesus, that he is the Christ and that he's the Son of God. And instead of trying to convince his readers of his own trustworthiness, he invokes a Jewish prophet who wrote between the late 8th century BC and the early 7th century BC. It's like saying, I'm not asking you to take my word for it, but look at what Isaiah said about the coming of the Messiah. When we think about Mark's original audience, in the 1st century AD, what do we know about them from Mark's choices here? Mark believes that his original audience is 1, familiar with Isaiah the prophet, and 2, that Isaiah's words would carry authority with them. It seems logical that Mark's original audience would be largely made up of Jewish people who would know of Isaiah and would be awaiting the Messiah. Otherwise, the quote would carry little to no weight. But Mark did something very interesting. He starts with an amalgamation of Exodus 23:20 and Malachi 3:1. Behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way. While this is not from Isaiah, it is widely quoted in Judaism to look back at the Exodus and to look forward to the coming of the Messiah and the redemption of the chosen people. Both texts are about divine intervention to deliver God's people, so it still fits Mark's purpose and is still familiar to his original audience. Then Mark gets to the quote from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his paths straight. Notice that the subject of the quote from Isaiah is a voice crying in the wilderness, not crying in the town square, not the seat of government, not even in the synagogue. The voice cries in the wilderness to draw people to itself. It doesn't go to the masses. This will become an important point when we get to Mark chapter 1, verse 5. Isaiah is the longest of the Old Testament prophets and has much to say about the Messiah. But Mark chose this little snippet that isn't directly about the Messiah, but rather is about the Messiah's front-runner or predecessor. In the ancient world, when a king or other very important person traveled, it was customary to send out front-runners to announce the king's coming. It was to get the people ready, but it also literally prepared the way. The front-runners made sure that the roads were suitable for the king to travel, that the potholes were filled and the bumps were leveled. But more importantly, that the people were made aware the king was coming so they would be ready to receive him. In the time when Mark wrote his gospel, the popular understanding of Exodus 23 verse 20 and Malachi 3 verse 1 and Isaiah 40 verse 3 was that before the Messiah came, he would be preceded by a front-runner to announce his imminent arrival and to get the people ready to receive him. So look at how smart and tactical Mark was as a writer. After making his very big claims about the good news he was sharing, that Jesus was both the Messiah and the Son of God, he directed his readers to reflect on their own expectations about the Messiah. Because of what God's prophet Isaiah told them about the coming of the Messiah, they should expect a front-runner to come first. So if Mark can direct them to someone who fulfills that prophetic role, particularly someone they already know about, they don't have to trust Mark's words at face value. They can trust Isaiah's words, which they've presumably heard all their lives, and they can apply those words to what they themselves have seen and know about the events described in Mark's Gospel. After the Isaiah quote, Mark introduces the front-runner by name, a man called John, who was baptizing people in the wilderness and proclaiming the soon arrival of one greater than himself. In our next video, we'll look at Mark's description of John the Baptist in Mark chapter 1, verses 4 through 8. Thank you for watching So What Scripture. Please subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends.